Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Hello.
Hello, and
Hello,
welcome.
everyone.
Everyone say hello. We are live. We
Hello.
are live. This is Link Couples. Thank you for joining us tonight. Link Couples Ministry. We're so glad that you're able to join us on all our platforms. If you would go ahead and share this, go ahead and share with your friends. Let them know that we are live. Let them know that we are here to talk about marriage during the pandemic, the extended chapter. Yeah, the extended chapter.
Amen.
We're so happy to have wonderful couples to join us tonight. Sister Bernard, Sister Rhonda, and Brother Bernard Brown that's here today. They've been doing counseling forever. They've been part of Link Couples and always forever. We just thank them for joining us. Plus, we have a special surprise. We have Dr. George James with us tonight. He's our family and marriage couples therapist that Dr. George James, he's been doing it for a long time also. So we appreciate you all for joining us tonight.
Amen.
Thank you.
At this time, give you time to go ahead and share that out. We don't want to get started without anyone. We'll give you a couple minutes, let you know that we're here.
Mhm.
Let you know that we're here. Also, we'll be taking comments and questions later on. Appreciate you guys for joining us every month. This will be the last installment of this pandemic, married during the pandemic, the good, the bad, the ugly, truth. But this installment is called the extended chapter.
Yeah, because how many will be in it for this long? I mean,
Right.
we're
And not expected.
unexpected. And I mean, if you think about it, like 10, 11 days left in October, and we're hitting November,
Yeah.
so it truly is the extended chapter
Yeah.
about the good, the bad, and the ugly truth of the pandemic, and marriage and family, and being in the house and together, more than we used to.
Yeah, so I think we need to go back and just look at where this all started. When we all started in March or April or May. I mean, we all felt like we took a deep sigh of relief. I think most of us said, "Okay, this is gonna be all right." We went to our closets. We enjoyed the days. We Netflixed. We binge watched. We did a lot of different things. We talked to each other as a family more often. We ate in the house more often.
That's right.
All the tissue. We did everything that we could possibly do and paint and everything in the house. But now we're in October, and what we want to do tonight is make sure that we're ready for that next chapter, that chapter that's going to be here now, but into next year. And we don't lose sight of that, especially as couples. Lose sight of where God is trying to take us also. So there's a special place in this moment that we have to be able to understand that God is a part of. And so as a couple, we have to be able to look at that and bring that spiritual guidance into our lives.
Right. Yeah, because they talk about it as some on the TV even now. Because this is the extended chapter, if you will. Many people are getting pandemic fatigue. So we started off strong. We had our list of what we was going to accomplish. Some of us got those things accomplished. Some of us may not have. Had family time, game nights, different things like that. And we just, started to embrace the time that we had together that many of us in what was once normal our lifestyles didn't have. And so now that started in March, and here we are tapping on November. So now we're looking at each other like, okay, well, we've done all that, so now that's getting old. So now what do we do?
So we're looking at Ecclesiastes in the 4th chapter. It talks about two are better than one because they get a reward. Ecclesiastes, two are better than one because you get a great reward at the end. And also we want to look at that threefold cord, that spiritual guidance that connects us all. We're here, but also we thank God for the spiritual guidance of us all being able to tap into where God wants us to be. And so some of us, we have some individual accomplishments as a couple that we need to look at and goals, but also as a couple, what can we tap into? So it's going to be something for individuals. We jump on here and as couples. So hey, there he is. George James, welcome.
You're muted.
Sir, how you doing?
I'm good. How's everybody?
Good, man. Good, man. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Man, nice background.
You guys are the all-star team. I'm just hanging out with you guys.
Oh,
Oh, good.
Man, this is gonna be exciting tonight. We was just putting it all together, letting them know what we're talking about tonight, the extended chapter. This is our last installment of this, and I'm glad you can join us tonight. We really appreciate all of you guys joining us, because I think this is what we need to be able to talk about the future or the next chapter, where we're going, and set couples up and individuals up for that next beginning. So we're going to jump in here. We're going to talk about, jump right in and start talking about the spiritual parts of things and where we need to go as couples. Because how many know that during this time, some of us maybe have lingered off from praying together, fasting together, and doing some of those things together that would cause a connection with each other.
Right.
So where do you think, my question would be, what should we be doing now more than what we, maybe where do we slack off at? I guess we want to say. Where do we feel that some of us slack off at in this time? Because a lot of us started off a certain way. We started off strong, but what can we do better during this time?
Yeah, because if you think about it, as we talked about a little bit, Dr. George, before you jumped on, we started off this pandemic strong, right? Most of us, we said, okay, now I got time to do this, that, and let's make a list and accomplish.
Right.
And if we think about it and are not careful, we can also get so consumed with what we want to do that we fall apart. Church is no longer, in the building, right? So we can get so consumed in personal things and what we want to do too, that we have to make sure of the balance to make sure we're not pulling away spiritually as individuals and as couples, and make sure that what's important, what's most important is still putting God first and in the center of our marriage and in our household, but still yet seeking him to find out what it is he would have us do in this time. So it can be a hard balance, and because we're talking about now the extended chapter, a lot of times we can possibly find ourselves falling off. So what can we do to help with that, to recenter or refocus ourselves spiritually?
Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity to kind of hang out with you all, and I do think it's definitely one of those things where, as you said, like in the beginning, people had some energy. First, like people were thrown off, and then they're like, "Oh, wait, this could be a blessing. This could be good, and let me take advantage of it." And a lot of people, like most things, we get tired and worn out. Like, a lot of people can work out like every day for like the rest of their life, but like some people, they start working out, feel good, and then like, oh man, I'm just tired. I want to take a break, and then that break turns into like a month. And that month turns into like a year, and you're like, and so I think like that happens with like how people do lots of things, and I think some people probably started some Bible studies or were praying with their family and their spouse, and then they're like, I got something else to do. Right, and they get tired or they move on, and a lot of that is like just normal fatigue and wear, and like people thought like things would be different right now, and I think like it is a great encouragement to be able to say like, how are you reconnecting with your spouse? How are you making sure that God is the focal point? Because the hard part of this is that probably a lot of us felt or used the church as a way to make sure that God is a part of our relationship. And that's not what we're called to do. We're called to have God as part of our marriages at home, and then further strengthened by going to church. And so I think it's really challenging for people to say like, where is God? Is God in the actual building, or is God in your actual marriage?
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think you make a very good point, because a lot of people, we worked a lot, or volunteered a lot, so much in church, and so being able to be at home and not have that, I guess you would say that schedule, because we was on a schedule, and we wasn't actually to be where we needed to be, where we were going to do, on your spouse, letting them know, but now that schedule was kind of smashed. And so how could you regain that schedule in a different way? And that's a very good point, being able to maneuver that, especially during this time. So and I guess most people now are finding themselves trying to restructure that schedule. I know a lot of churches are putting in place different things that we can do that's basically virtual now. virtual, or are you volunteering hours at certain places at certain times and trying to solve that problem? Ron, do you have anything beyond?
Well, I was just going to say what George said was very true. And I think now more than ever, we have to be careful. Like George was saying, we use the church as an excuse for our relationship with the Lord. And now it's about that personal relationship and then bringing the personal into our marriage. Somehow, finding time now. We don't have the same excuse. I have this meeting on Monday, another meeting on. Now it's about finding the time to just sit with our spouse and making that time to make the God that we serve more about just being the church, but about being the center of our marriage. And I think we do get tired of some of those things that we put in place in March, April, May, and June. But I think doing things like this virtual makes us say, okay, we slipped off a little bit, but now it's time to refocus and get back on board. And I know we're guilty of it. We started getting busy again, and then we're getting busy in other areas. We're real careful that we don't replace all those meetings that we attended with other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. A time like this is a good time to, begin to, and we've talked about this before with linked couples, but I know because, we're all guilty of it. We say, or we start strong with fasting and praying together and different things like that. And so that we can connect more spiritually and things like that. But this is the perfect time to do more of that. Even if you said, one day a month, one day a week, whatever works for your household, your marriage. But it's important that we grow together spiritually, especially when the Lord is allowing us space and time to do that, because many of us would always use the excuse of busy as well, not just it's always something going on, whether it be kids, whether it be sports, etc. Now, just about everything is virtual, online, etc. So he's given us space to do such a thing, So these are the times now as couples we have to use to evaluate even each other's needs. This is a good time of refreshing in our relationship. Sitting down, talking to each other, or writing things down and then coming together and saying, okay, let's evaluate each other's needs. What do I need from you? What do you need from me? How can we refresh even during this time where the Lord has given us space to do so?
I think it's wonderful. Yeah, I truly believe that's the thing. We come out of here the same spiritually that we went into it.
Absolutely.
There should be a tap into or another level that we should have that God has centered us in to know individually and connected with our spouse that we are at another level. God has connected us at another level with Him, and I'm truly thankful for that. So I guess the evaluation part is the most important part of that. We need to go back and evaluate each other and set some type of goals and go back to those things that we were doing. I know me and her, we prayed so much at the beginning and kind of fell off a little bit. I mean, if I to be honest, we fell off some, and so it's time to reconnect, and that's good for us to do that.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I definitely, one of the things that has been really great about this, like when COVID and everything started, it was realizing like, wow, there's so much extra stuff that I put in my schedule that I don't need to put in my schedule. And then I filled it back up with some other stuff and then got busy. And then realizing like, oh, wow, like I really can create time. Like, yes, there's things I need to do. But if I put a block on my schedule, I can actually really accomplish something. Whether it's like, okay, like, all I gotta do is go upstairs, or I just gotta go to the next room. I can be on time for dinner, right? Like, if we really like, take that in consideration, then like, we can really also make time for our spouse. We can also make time for God, and still do all the other things that we need to do.
No, I think that creating time is true. That creating time is a big thing because we can. I mean, we don't have those like challenges of, as many birthday parties. Now we do drive-through birthday parties. It lasts 10 minutes.
Right.
So it's like the challenges of
most people want to keep that.
So
I love it.
We have that time and space to be able to do different things. And while I'm here, I want to shout out to the Connections Church. A lot of them, I see a lot of them on here. So Thank you guys, Bethany Church, everyone that's on here.
Thanks for joining.
Shout out to them. So what, I guess the next question, so what are some of those things? I guess we can talk about, what are some of those things if what are some of those things we can complete now, or we can start or relaunch now? What are some of those things that we can go back and look at, just so we can give some people some ideas on where they can go and what they can do if they did kind of lose sight on some things? What are some of those things that we can do?
I think one of the things that I think about that we've been fortunate to do, and it's just like, it's one of those things that like turns out to be like, wow, like why were we not doing this before? And for some people it's different things, but for us it's really also we've had an opportunity like to connect with nature. And one of those things like in connect with nature, it reminds me of like how awesome God is, right? Like you can go like, a few weeks ago we went to a mountain that was about an hour from here, and then before that we went to hike at a place that was 5 minutes from our house. And we're like, 5 minutes? Like it's been here all this time? Where was this mountain hiding? It was all there. But like, for us sometimes in doing these things, you start to remember like, wow, God created this. Like God did the heavens and the earth, right? The mountains and the seas. And then in that moment, like sometimes it can really center you. And so I think like that's one of the things is like sometimes what can you do to get out that is safe, socially distant, that allows you to still that helps to remind you that it's God. Sometimes it's just a walk. Sometimes it's just being able to just look around. I don't know how many people have like actually looked up and seen the stars, right? Like be able to like, wow, that like to remember, like sometimes we've been so busy and doing things that we stop looking up. And it could be just step outside and look up. And then to remind yourself, well, who created that? And then that might be able to allow you and your spouse to feel good about like the things that God is doing and has done.
That's good. That's good. And I know for Bernard and I, one Saturday, we were bored. And we decided to go to Atlantic City. We got halfway there and decided to turn around. Like, why are we going all the way, they say? And we turned around and we ended up at another location. And we got out the car and just walked around. And Bernard said, why were we going all the way an hour away when we had this right in our backyard?
Right there.
And I think sometimes we forget about places right in our backyard. We think we have to go far to have a good time.
Right.
And now is the time to research those places right in your own area and make it a date night. Just the two of you. And it's a good experience just to look up places in your area that you can just be just the two of you and enjoy it.
And like you said, George, just blocking out time, making time so you can do some things together. I found it's been rewarding for me when just rather being home at the same time, kind of coming home at the same time. I've been waiting for that for like 30 years now.
Too much.
30 plus years.
George, it's been 41 years. So he cut off 10 of them.
You were waiting on him those first 10.
Oh, yeah, that's it. But it is a good thing that we're both home at the same time in the evening now. And we look forward to being home and not having to leave the house and come back 4 hours later.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I like both of those. And especially, being out in the nature where you can like meditate a lot more. I found that, when we go out sometimes, just being able just to look up and look at the sun, thank God for the sun that's shining, and looking at it a different way, because it's like, wow, we really, this doesn't have to be. This is something that God gave to us. And looking at it from a different light, just thanking God that you are alive to be able to see some of those things. So the hiking and the trails and the things like that. I've seen a lot of people, even on social media, that did a lot of things that are socially distant, but they're still able to connect with their spouses and their family by going out into doing things like that. So I think that's wonderful.
Right. Yes. On social media, we can also see that, a lot of people are launching businesses. Maybe it's something that they've always wanted to do, but never had the time to do that. So individually and or as a couple, this is a perfect time to do research, whatever research you need. Everything's online and virtual now. So if it's online, that's definitely the way to go nowadays. This could be a time to reclaim something that maybe you deferred or put on hold in the past, like going to school, taking online classes, developing a new skill set, things like that.
I've seen some volunteer opportunities too. People are volunteering now too a lot more.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that, that diversity where people are volunteering someplace they'd never volunteered before to be able to get out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and to the point about business, what I realize is that, like, we all bring different things to the marriage, and if you're able to really recognize the gift and talent in your spouse, and like what we found is that, like, we've always like worked together and wanted to work together, but like we've had some opportunity to really like support each other in the things that we want to do, and it's like, like, I'm grateful. Like, Candace has time. All right, let's work on it. Let's do some things like, over the summer that I'm like, yeah, there's no way I was going to do that. Like I had all this vision and I had this great stuff, but then he was able to help me like to be even more detailed with certain things that I know is part of her skill set that I appreciate. But because of everything else, sometimes we just don't have all the time to put into it. And we had a couple of days where she had some time, and so it was good to be able to work together. And I think that sometimes people can recognize that, wow, there's multiple reasons why you married that person, and they have gifts and talents that can help you.
Right. And it gives you a new appreciation, because like you said, the skill set of your spouse, but it's with life being so busy and hectic sometimes, especially if you have small children, a lot of times, you don't get to use it or see it amongst each other. And then when you do, it's like, oh yeah, that's why I married you. No, but it's a good thing. So that's why I say, it's very important, just to kind of refresh even in marriage, because we're tapping into areas, even as husband and wife or in relationship, that maybe some of us have never tapped into. If you've always worked in different schedules your whole marriage, this may be a first for many couples.
And that's that unity part of it too, because we complete each other, and sometimes we forget that sometimes our weakness is made strong in our spouse. Because of that busy schedule, we miss out on that because we have to go and find other ways to be able to complete what we need. I know for me, like some of my writing, I do okay, but I know who the writing professional is in my household, and so if she's busy, I got to go and do it myself. But man, if I get her to go and update my documents and stuff like that, it's just a different world. So I know, like, during this time, and especially, I'm thankful for somebody to be there to be able to help me out with those different things.
Good stuff.
It's really good.
Yeah, I like to ask George. So, not assuming every couple is in a good place right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to what would you say to those couples that are struggling finding that balance or finding that middle place? Or one couple wants to do something, the other couple's not interested at all, but one couple wants to refresh and get it started, and it's been a couple of months, and so
it's good. Refresh that,
Yeah, no, I know that there are a lot of couples that are struggling. There's some couples that are in a very bad place, and then there's some couples that are just like, all right, we're just gonna push through this and figure out, a way out of this. And then, like for most of us, it's longer than we hoped or intended. I think part of this is also recognizing that the things that we do, having some space, actually can be good for the relationship. I don't think a lot of space is necessary. But so some of it is like, okay, how can you maybe do some individual things, even if you don't have a lot of space, maybe your own little projects. And then how can you try to like start over almost? Like, what is it that you like now? Because what you liked 5, 10, 6 months ago might not be the same. And I think, and being open to it. Yes. Are you open to trying? And one of the best ways, I think, is just to say, like, okay, we'll try your thing this time. We'll try my thing next time. Just to say, like, it's going to be fair right from the beginning versus, like, it's only my way or only your way. Because if anything, like with what we're already saying, like, you have to be open to just doing something different. That's what I think the whole pandemic is pushing most of us, is that you have to do something different and find a way how to do it, hopefully together.
Yeah, I think that open thing is very important, because I think with us being so tight knit together now, because things are happening in the world, and we was on lockdown at some point, that you found some things that you didn't have to deal with before, or not deal with, but you had avenues to be out. You could be at work longer, or you can come home later. And so now you're having to face some of these things that you didn't have to face. And now that we're going into the winter months where it's going to be colder outside, we need to go ahead and look at these things now. So I think that was an excellent question that Rhonda was talking about, because we got to look at these things, because at some point we have to be able to deal with these things and understand that those differences, they're different, but if we're open, then we can rectify those things and be able to be mature adults and figure out how we get together.
That's right. That's right. There's a question. Yes. Someone wants to know, Crystal, what advice do you have for long distance marriages?
Okay. Good question.
Good question.
Great question. So
I'll say, and I know that the two of you, the two couples, have great thoughts on this. I think it's hard. Like I think like first, owning that it's hard. What does travel look like? How far apart are you? What feels safe? Like, are you a car ride away, or are you a flight away? Like, there's some people who haven't been on a flight all most of this year. While some people are like, I can get in a car and drive someplace. I think it's just trying to be creative. What are the different ways to just stay connected? Whether it be like, online phone calls, or meeting up halfway, or sometimes you might just have to take the chance to say, like, look, I'm going to put the mask, the gloves, the hazmat suit on. And I'm going to do all of that. Get on the plane so I can get to,
That's right.
Right. But I think that's a good point. And I think it kind of goes along with, even when you're in the same household together, even though we're together, we still have to communicate. We still have to lay out a plan. We still have to agree on what makes sense, what works for me, what works for him. So I think all that still rolls over, although you're not in the same space. You have to communicate on what's going to work for each other and come into agreement on that. And then when something seems to be out of place along the journey, then we need to sit down and we need to reevaluate some things. We made that point a couple of times already this evening. So just reevaluating on what's going to work for us, what makes us happy. What doesn't work, and just being open and flexible to talk about those things so that we're on the same wavelength. And that's it. That's all it is in marriage, making sure we're on the same wavelength.
And that question too is kind of open ended, because are you long distance? You can't see them during the pandemic. It's less tougher because you can fly now, or is it always kind of tough to get back and forth? And so if it's just during this now period, I would say, bubble yourself for a few days and get on that flight and put some hazmat on sometime and jump on that flight and get there, or drive. You have time, make that great drive, find a place where you guys as much as possible. Also, you got the virtual movies that you can do. You FaceTime each other, watch the same movie, schedule that time, watch the same movie at the same time, talk to each other while you're watching the movie, things like that.
That's good.
That stuff can open up and be very creative on some things that you can do.
Absolutely. That's a good question. Good question.
I think you have to keep in mind that the pandemic is going to be over one day. And hopefully you can start spending time planning what you're going to do in the future.
That's true.
When it is over, put a plan together, put some money away, get ready, because it's going to be over. I know it is. So we just got to keep hope alive, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jonathan, when you mentioned that. Like, I think I just saw like Disney Plus. Yes, I got kids and I love Disney, so it doesn't matter. If I didn't have kids, I probably still would have Disney. I started this group thing where you can like invite other people to watch the same movie at the same time at a different location. So, like, to your point, like, there are ways that you can do that and connect with people. And, Bernard, I love the thought of like, start planning, like, free up some stuff so that way you can maybe do it bigger than you have. Maybe you can go on that vacation that you've always wanted to.
That's right.
And that's the part of what we're talking about, the extended chapters. Start planning those things out, because you do have that time, and you do know it's going to last a little bit longer. That's why we want to put that alert. I want to put that alarm in your spirit to let you know that you have that. You go ahead and take advantage of that time. Start planning now for those things.
And that actually segues into what we were going to talk about next. You know, how can we prepare our household for 2021? How can we prepare for the next coming months? You know, this type of partial isolation is not over now, but it will be someday. So, you know, we have to begin talking about those things. Let's not wait until, you know, the day where they say, okay, outside is open again. Everybody can, you know, do what you normally did before. No, let's begin talking about those things as a couple, as a family. What are some of the things I asked Jonathan, I think earlier today? I said, you know, once things get better, you know, what's the top 5 things you want to do? Let's talk about those things now so that we can begin to see how we can put those things in place. So this is the time now, and the space now again that God has given us for us to be able to plan those things out, figure out what we want to tackle first, what we want to tackle next, and then how will we tackle it? But how will we balance everything out while we're doing that?
We have 2 people that made a comment, and one said, get a cup of hot chocolate, sit outside. The weather's been beautiful. And it's so true. We're almost at the end of October, and we're having 70 degrees weather. So this is the perfect time to sit outside and have a good cup of hot chocolate with your spouse, and it makes it a date night. We also are fortunate enough to have some people on that aren't married, but I have a question. And so the question was, I want to get married one day. I'm not ready to start dating just yet. A part of the reason is I'm not ready to be vulnerable when guys approach me. I don't give them a chance. Any advice from me? Should I stop being this way? Will I push my future husband away being this way? I mean, I know we're a linked couple, but this is someone who chimed in. So what could we do to help her? What could we say? Marriage counselor.
You know, look, I've learned so much from, you know, all 4 of you. So I was like, you're like, I know there's always tremendous.
I'm about to be like, you're the expert now, so we can start first so we can wrap it up.
You know, one of the things that I think about that I share, and actually just before I got on, I was working with a young woman who is dating, and being vulnerable is hard, and you know, for a lot of women, and I think like a lot of women in the church have learned how to, like, you've had to just think about taking care of everything, right? Like from an early age, like you've thought about like all the different things, people, situations, and so sometimes just always having to be on go and having to take care of things, like you can put up some boundaries and you can put up some walls, and sometimes those walls keep you from letting people in. I fully believe that you should have some deal breakers. You should not just let everybody into your circle. You should not, everybody should not have access to you, but somebody has to have access to you. And so to really think about, like, what are those things, right? Do they believe in God? All right. If they don't, maybe that's a deal breaker, right? Like, if, you know, are they working towards something? Do they treat you nice? Like, what are the things that allow you then to have a conversation? And just because you have a conversation doesn't mean you're going to marry them.
Right.
They have to prove themselves over time before you can make that decision. So maybe you open up a little bit with respect to knowing that you just don't let everybody in. And from there, then you have a wise counsel around you. People who might see the blind spots when you don't see it, to help you just in case you're missing something.
Right. And that's the point that you make. You know, as you said, you know, they have to prove themselves over time. A conversation doesn't mean marriage. And so as they continue to prove themselves, then you continue to open up little by little. And them proving themselves gives you the freedom to do that. You don't just pour it all out, you know, just little by little.
Yeah, Bishop talks about this all the time, talk about time and circumstance. So it's going to take some time, and so there's going to be some circumstances that will come up in these conversations, which will let you know how to weigh that balance scale, whether they're, you know, whether they're for you or against you, or, you know, or some things that is not lining up with your boundaries or your schedule or what you have in mind for the guy that God's going to send you. So you have to be very, very, I guess, discerning during these times. And also, you know, bring a friend with you some of these times too. I mean, it's not just talk, have a conversation by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a conversation. If you feel that way that you might push someone away, let's conversate with someone else around. It doesn't have to just be two of you. This is new, so let's treat it accordingly.
We have another question, and it's vague, but what do you do if you find you're unequally yoked after you've gotten married?
Yeah.
What do you do if you find that you're unequally yoked after you've gotten married?
So I've heard different things. Well, different things, but the one that I lean to, and I wonder what you all also have to say on this, is the thought of like, well, what is the higher commandment, right? And I think God, asks us to be committed to our spouse, right? And if we happen to be unequally yoked, maybe we knew that, maybe we didn't.
Yeah.
But outside of certain things, right? Like, and this, me personally, you go to a bishop and someone else to get like the full spiritual advice. But outside of like abuse and certain hurtful, harmful things, then you try to work on the marriage as best as possible, and then hope and pray that maybe you can become more equally yoked. But that's my perspective. I wonder what you all think as well regarding that.
Go ahead, Bernard. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I was on a kayak with a friend of mine, and we weren't the same size. So in order to get the kayak to work and go in the direction we wanted to go, we had to communicate, and we had to follow each other.
Mm-hmm.
The communication broke the barrier down, the fact that we weren't equally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
The communication is the key in the unequal, so-called unequal relationship, and that's how we made it through.
Yeah, and I think that's very true, and also the respect level that we have, because you can be unequally yoked. One can be, a Christian, and one can be not. But if that Christian man or that Christian woman is treating you with respect, they don't bother the times you go to church. They respect you at the home. They're treating you while you are being that light in that home, and while you are showing your godly efforts. Because there's times like that. Not all of us are married, and I don't know if, unfortunately, but not all of us just get married, and all of us are Christians, and we walk in and we're mature and we're doing everything the right way and all this. This just doesn't happen all the time. So with that being said, it's the respect level that we're giving each other. Do I really love you? If I love you, I'm gonna love you enough to allow you to go ahead and go ahead and go to the church, go ahead and volunteer, go ahead and do what you need to do while I'm trying to work on myself. Right. And then vice versa. If I'm that Christian person, if I love them, then I'm going to continue to be that light. I'm going to continue to treat them right. I'm going to treat them like my husband. And we're going to be able to work through these things, because after a while, being around me for long enough, I should be able to let you know that God is a good God. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to see my testimony in me. Right. And something should be igniting your spirit that's been there all along. And one day you'll find yourself walking just like I'm walking. So I believe that God is a God of change. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be able to respect that in that scenario.
Yeah, it's just respecting each other. As with marriage or any other type of relationship, what we've talked about it all night. What can we do in that evaluation process? What is it that I need from you? What do you need from me? Mm-hmm. And that again goes back to communication. Us communicating together to see how we're partners now. We're married before God and we're in covenant together. So what can we do to support each other? In this marriage and walking forward.
And I think to kind of say this part too, that's something that drove us to say that we was in love in the first place. Absolutely. And we have to go back to the beginning and understand what was that connection that we got in love. And I truly believe as long as, that spouse is respecting and loving you, then we can work different things out.
And that's a very good point. Reminiscing on what brought you together in the first place. I know we do that a lot. When we would jump on a plane and fly out to the Caribbean somewhere with no children, those days I'm waiting to come back. We did a lot of that on our vacations, reminiscing back to the first days. It made our vacation a whole lot better. It just brings back that joy and that love that you first found for one another. And it brings that back and tightens that connection. And in those times are the perfect times in which you discuss, okay, well, what is it that I can do better? And vice versa. What is it that you can do better? In those times of joy that we discuss that, so that we should be willing to compromise, bend, and make our spouse happy.
Good.
And I think too, sometimes when we feel like we're at the bottom and unequally yoked, or I think that's sometimes you need to consider going for counseling. I know a lot of,
True.
especially young people, don't see the value in it, but sometimes just bringing a mediator in the middle to help you communicate.
Good.
Because
Good.
for young and old couples just getting married, and couples married long as us, you don't want to bring a third party into your situation,
Yeah.
but you've lost the way to communicate to each other. So you're talking at each other instead of to each other. And sometimes just having a third party say, well, what did you hear when they said that? And you're repeating it, it really helps. So I even suggest that maybe going for counseling when you're not, connected anymore.
Right.
Really good.
Absolutely.
That's a really good question. Really, really good question. So I want to, I see some more questions down. We'll get to those, but I want us to be able to get to, as we, a lot of this is still talking about the next chapter. I think the young lady's talking about opening up, and, unequally yoked still talks about that, because we have to be able to deal with that, because it's so much, I think the divorce rate's really high right now. And Dr. Georgia, before we go a little bit further, can you talk about this? And we keep talking about hearing about this pandemic fatigue. And I want us to be very careful during this time period about this pandemic fatigue before I ask the next question. But can you have you heard about this? I just started listening that a lot of people are getting out a lot more and things like that.
Yeah, it's been 7 months since at least us on the East Coast have really been shut down, quarantined with COVID, and 7 months is a long time, right? 7 months where we almost had to do like an abrupt stop, right? People were going to work, people weren't wearing masks, they were hanging out, they were doing things, going to church, and almost like days, if not overnight, that all had to change. And a lot of people said, like, in their mind was like, okay, I'll do this for a few months, and then there were all types of stuff like, oh, the heat of the summer is gonna burn the virus out. Right? It was like Black people can't get it. I mean, there was just all this stuff that was there that we were hearing in the early beginning, and then the summer hits. Oh, you mean I can't go on vacation the way I used to?
Yeah.
And then okay, the summer's coming to an end, and now it's the school year. Oh, we got to go back to online learning, or we got to go back. So it's all those layers, and not to mention during all of this, right? There's been racial injustice, heightened awareness of racial injustice, protests, people who have died, and then not to mention just regular like life stressors, right? Just adversities, trials, crisis. And we get bogged down. It gets heavy. And so that's the fatigue of just like, okay, is this over yet? And then some people in their mind have just said it's over when it's not. Like in their mind, they're like, you know what? Okay, I'm done. Right? No more. Like the virus is over. I'm gonna go out and hang out. No, people are still
numbers increasing.
Right, and that's where we start to see the spike of people getting sick and rates increasing, because people have said in their mind it's over, and it's not. And so that's the fatigue where people start making choices and decisions that are just not real.
Yeah,
you still got to be careful. You still need to do the things that take care of you and your family and those around you, which means mentally you got to say, I got to hold out a little bit longer.
And that's so tough.
Right, for sure.
It's so tough. And it's so true.
Sure.
And it is. People are still getting sick, and we have to be able to be aware of that and just hold off. People, if you're on here tonight, I just hold off. Stay in prayer, stay at home, be safe. And don't think just because you are a person or you might be asymptomatic, don't put someone else at risk because of how you feel about the situation.
Right.
And so let's be careful during this time. And I just want to get that out there because I think it's very important, because we all run into that fatigue where we just want to get out of this house and we get out enough, but we want to extend our bubble, I guess you want to say. I just want to go here, I want to go there. And there's a lot of people I want to see that I haven't seen in a while. So
Yeah, and
I miss getting on a flight. I want to go somewhere, but I gotta.
That's
I'm
right.
tight.
That's right.
it's tough, but we got to do what, some of what we said already. Put that energy into planning what we're going to do when it's safe to do so.
Right.
So as we switch here, I want to talk a little bit about, doing a marriage SWOT analysis. Go back and look, doing a SWOT analysis on some of the things that we can do during this extended chapter. And for those of you who don't know what a SWOT analysis is, it's basically going and look at the strengths of our marriages. Go down and take the time and write some of these things down. Look at the weaknesses, and we all have some type of weaknesses in our marriage and relationships. And then look at the opportunities and the threats of our relationships also. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to look in there and see where we're at now and start looking at some of those things.
Right. And with that, it's good to do that because you get to, as he stated, see where we are now, take a realistic look at where we are, and then go beyond that to say, where do we want to be? Okay, we know it's all out on the table. This is where we are. This is us, right? So, but where do we want to be? And then that gives you the opportunity as a couple to work together to do that gap analysis, say, okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to be. What do we want to come up with as a plan to get from here to there? What's our timeline? What's our short-term, long-term goals? And do those things that can progress us as a couple. But we have to do this thing together. We can do this individually, of course, but definitely do this as a couple because this is going to grow our household. This is going to catapult us to a place of being better than we were before.
So how important do you think analysis would be in a relationship? Is that something that we should dive into or look into? Do you think it's important? What do you think?
I do think it's important, and I think that just recently someone challenged me to even think about like what are the things that I'm doing and that my wife and I are doing to continue to grow, because sometimes we can just settle and be comfortable and think that, okay, we're good. Okay, I paid my bill this month and I'm good. I don't need to do, but there might be a step above paying the bill, right?
Yeah.
It might be like being able to do other things. And some of that means sometimes a really good evaluation. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier is that iron still sharpens iron, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's in person or virtual, right? Like accountability and having good people to speak into you, to encourage you works no matter where it is. You could be across the world and still be encouraged and equipped. And so to make sure you have those people, like to be a part of ministry, to be a part of connecting with other couples, you can still do that in lots of good ways. And I think, it's a good time, as you were mentioning earlier, that 21 is coming around the corner. It's a good time to start thinking about what is it that is part of the vision? What is it that God has given you? What is it that you want for your relationship?
Yeah.
How did this fire of COVID show you who you and your spouse are and what you need to work on? And if you could take that and really push, I think that could allow you to grow in phenomenal ways.
That's good.
That's good.
I totally agree. What you saying, brother?
That's good.
Okay. No, I think it's so true. We're that's where we're at right now. We're trying to push this to that new year, that next year. Make sure you're equipped. We believe in having that toolbox to make sure you're equipped at any level. Right. So when the time comes, you're able to pull those things out of that toolbox. Say, you know what, we already talked about this. We know that we're supposed to be prepared. We know that we should do analysis or talk to each other, communicate with our spouse. We know that these things are available to us to be able to have, and that's where we're at now. Because you don't want to cut especially as a man. You always thinking forward. You should be always thinking forward, and therefore you always should be knowing or understanding what you want to do in the future. And with that, with you connecting with your spouse, you and your spouse coming together, building this plan together, you can only be stronger when you work together. And that's where that good labor comes in Ecclesiastes, where you're stronger and you come out of this thing with a great reward, because you have decided that we're going to work together to drive this thing. These businesses, these books, these opportunities that you have, even these saving program. I saw a lot of people with houses are able to save. Yeah. They've saved a lot of money during this time. Gas money in itself has saved us a lot. I mean, you're talking about gas money, man. You can pay something off.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right.
you go mine in your house,
Yeah.
and you taking some of that gas money and you throwing that extra money on a credit card bill, or you throwing some of that on a mortgage, and both of you are being accountable. That's the way you can plan into 2021. Or the gifts that you decide on this year for Christmas. Go ahead and budget those things out. Go ahead and, whatever you decide, that's how you can plan. That's how you can, get ahead also. So there should be something that we can ignite tonight to allow you to know that all things are possible when you allow you guys work together in community.
Right.
And communicate. Yes.
Yes, exactly. The important thing is just not staying stagnant. As Dr. George was talking about, you do have to have those good people around you, if not each other, to say, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Because we can, especially if we've accomplished a couple of things, we can get to a place where we feel where we get stagnant and we find ourselves becoming complacent. And, we will always want to have people in our circle that challenge us to always be the best that we can possibly be. And that includes couples. Oftentimes we've heard people say, it's so hard to, find another couple, to be around, or we don't find ourselves, fellowshipping with other couples. But there's so much you can learn from other couples, from each other. There's so much that, other couples have dealt with that you think, where you may think you're alone in a room, that, you guys are the only one dealing with it. There's so much growth conversation that can come out of that can broaden your mind and really take you to another place.
That's good. That's good. Before we get out of here, we have like 5 more minutes. I want those who are online to let us know where you're shouting in from, where you're connecting with us from. And then also, I want you to put in, if you would, in the comments, let us know some good places where we can go and kind of, do safety distance, maybe date night or eating spots or somewhere that we can hang out. Any ideas that you have? While we talk about a couple here ourselves, but I'd like to know, from where you at, what's a good place where you can just go and maybe, sit with your spouse outside in the park, or maybe a good restaurant that has nice social distancing that we haven't ate at yet. It could be in Arizona. I saw somebody in there from California, wherever you're at. If you could chime in, let us know some of these places. I have a lot of time now, so I get to watch some of these eating spots. So if you could help me out a little bit. So for us, what's some good spots that we could kind of go and, eat at? I think you said, a couple of restaurants you guys have landed at. What's a good spot that we could?
You asking us?
Outdoors?
Yes.
We've been to a couple. We've been trying outdoor places, but I mean,
Close to home.
Yeah, outdoor, close to home. Yes.
Close to home.
I would have to think about. Well, of course, Chicky and Pete's outdoor.
Yeah, Chicky and outdoors is nice.
What's that? Bonefish Grill, great outdoor.
Oh, they have a good outdoor. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw the tents up, but I didn't see how.
They have it well separated. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, Fleming's is next to it, I think.
Okay.
A little more on the expensive side, but very nice dining.
That's grown people eating. Grown people eating, huh? Grown people eating.
Yeah, it's a special night.
Anything in Philly, George?
You know what? We haven't ventured out as much to places. But what's been interesting for us is that we've been going on our date nights and we found places that we like. We go order, and then we take out, and then like eat and talk. And so it's like we take the food. We're like, we're not going in, but we'll take the food and we'll go someplace else and just hang out and talk. And we've had some really great conversations that felt really rewarding and helpful, and good food at the same time. So wherever it is, whether it's a place around the corner or someplace else, I think just making that time is good.
Yeah, and I think location is important too. Even getting the food and taking it out, eating it in a park on a bench, like someplace other than home. Because once you get back home, it's not the same.
That's not the same.
So even ordering out, find some place. Even if you eat it in your car, like back in the day when you were dating.
That's what we've done.
Right.
I can put the stereo in the backup with the music. We're eating. We're like, hey, it's good time.
Yeah. See, we forget about what we did back when.
Back when.
Exactly.
On Father's Day, we with 3 families. We spent it in. We all were in separate cars.
Okay.
We bought the food, took it to the car, and we talked through the car windows.
Nice.
It was 100 degrees.
It was 100 degrees outside.
Oh, wow.
But it was fun.
It was fun. It was Father's Day. You know,
It was hamburgers and French fries.
Nothing big, but we were all together.
We were all together.
So.
And that's the type of thing we do all the time. I mean, we had to scale back. Actually, we were doing it a little bit too much. But just as you stated, George, just going and ordering somewhere and just, especially on these nice days, we roll the windows down and just enjoy the breeze, talk and eat, and enjoy our new space. We were okay with it. We were okay. We felt safe. We had good food, good conversation. And that again was a time away from home, just to kind of debrief from the at-home setting and what, everything that we're used to, kind of being at home all the time. So that's good.
Somebody said Chick-fil-A, Cuba Libre.
So there's another good place. They have nice outside dining.
Okay.
All right, good.
Tailgate from your trunk in the parking lot.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's good when you're meeting up with other couples or friends.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea. Good idea.
Good. Thank you guys for chiming in. Once again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us. We're going to start the close out now. Thank Dr. George James. Thank Deacon Bernard Brown and Sister Rhonda for joining us. We thank everyone for just joining us tonight. I hope we did poke some spots and that you're able to think about overnight, begin to speak to your spouse, significant other, to be able to start thinking about these things and where we can go into the future. We don't want to be left behind. We want to have that great reward, and we want God to be able to bless our next steps. And so by planning for these things, we're doing this on purpose so God can be a part of what we're doing every step of the way. So we appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. We thank you all for just staying with us. Remember, next month is going to be a new series. We're going to be doing this again. So we're just glad. We're just happy to be here. From the Link Couples Ministry, we want to say good night.
Amen.
Right.
Great.
We appreciate
Good night, everybody.